Hey there, this is Pat Ennis of Ennis Legacy Partners. Welcome to the Exit Readiness podcast. I'm here with co-host Walter Dial, who is tax partner at GRF CPAs and Advisors here in Bethesda, Maryland. Our mission here on the podcast is to provide you, the business owner, with subject matter expertise on topics pertaining to building sellable business value and for planning your eventual exit from the business. We want to help you build a business that's sellable and then exit successfully on your own terms and conditions. Walter, I think 9 out of 10 business owners, I think you would agree with us, that probably 9 out of 10 business owners we work with are married. Most are married, and as married business owners ourselves, you and me, we recognize the unique challenges of being both married and a business owner. For one thing, the business, if allowed to, can become all-consuming, leaving little to no time or energy for the marriage relationship, which is not good. Unique challenges like that one absolutely can impact the marriage, but also the strength of the business and the eventual exit of the owner and whether or not it's successful. And so that's our topic today, the unique challenge of being married and running a business. Today's conversation will serve in helping an owner build a strong business and realize a successful exit, but even more importantly, perhaps save a marriage. And our guests are Robert and Kaylee Fukui, who are the co-founders of I-61 Inc., a business consulting company. They married entrepreneurs create better work-life balance by structuring the businesses to scale while giving time back to the owner to invest in their marriage. Robert has a marketing degree from San Jose State and over 25 years of corporate marketing experience with companies like Coca-Cola, Novartis, Bristol Myers Squibb. Kaylee has a business degree from the University of Laverne in California. She worked in the banking industry for many years, and then many years too in her family business as the operations manager before meeting Robert. And so Robert and Kaylee, welcome to the podcast. Robert, welcome back. You've been with us before, but it's great that you're here with us today with your better half. So welcome back and welcome to you, Kaylee.
I figure I struck out the last time, so I figured I'd bring some backup. So, but no, great to be here. And I love the topic about succession and exit planning. I think just, as you know, we've had discussions when we first met, just an important topic that doesn't really get addressed until a lot of times it's too late.
So. Yes, thank you for having us.
You're welcome. And thank you for joining us, Kaylee. And I hope everyone can see the screen at this point. I just shared you guys are doing a book tour, and thanks for joining us in the middle of that. You just written a new book, Tandem, which viewers should be able to see on their screen right now. And congratulations on that. I'm enjoying reading it, by the way.
Oh, thank you.
And boy, so much of it rings true in regard to our experience in working with business owners and my own personal experience too, as being a business owner and married. So I'm looking forward to this. And actually, you know what? Let's start the conversation. Probably a good place to start with you explaining why you wrote this book to begin with.
Well, I think the main reason to write the book was that we can't help everybody. I mean, we know it's a need that needs to be addressed, and it's almost like the elephant in the room, work-life balance or imbalance, right? And for married entrepreneurs, and as consultants, we can only help so many people. So we just felt we need to get the word out. We didn't really see a lot of content or resources out there that really addresses both sides of the issue head on. Not just a marriage issue, but a relationship issue, but also the business. And what do you do with the business so that you can prioritize, your marriage and family? And so it's really about just trying to get the word out because we're just trying to figure out a way to multiply ourselves and multiply the message.
And we had struggles with some of the same stuff ourselves. So we just wanted to share our journey and our adventure of what worked for us.
Mm-hmm. Well, you know what? Let's drill down on that a little bit, Kaylee. What struggles or challenges that you experienced yourself that we would find maybe addressed in the book?
Well, one of the things was Robert was working at corporate, and then he decided he wanted to venture out and have his own business. So he was doing that part-time on the side. And we were in agreement upon that. I was all excited about it. But it ended up taking a lot of time. And he would be up at 2 a.m. in the morning, still working, coming to bed, getting up in the morning. The weekend would roll around and he'd get up, walk the dog, have breakfast, sit on the couch, and then he'd just fall asleep. He'd be so
It was just a
tired.
nap, honey.
He'd be so
So
tired.
you
And
were
I
kind of
knew,
like a roommate at that point, Kaylee?
yeah, I guess, yes. And so I knew I could do it for a season, but I didn't want to do it forever because I kind of like hanging out with the guy. I mean, call me crazy, but I mean, he was just so tired all the time.
Yeah, and so even I realized that at a certain point, it's like, okay, this is crazy, and so I just said, there's got to be a better way. And I think I fell into the same trap that a lot of other business owners do, is the same lie is you just got to put the time in, and you got to put in as much time as possible and just sacrifice the relationship and sacrifice your personal time. And I think I kind of bought into that because about the same time I was noticing, when you're having coffee with somebody or you're meeting somebody at church or whatever, and you ask, oh, how you doing? And most of the time their answer was busy. I'm busy. And they tell you all the things that they're doing to keep themselves busy. And I started responding the same way myself, because I thought, oh, maybe I got to be busy. If I wasn't busy, then maybe I'm not doing anything. And then I realized, busy is not the same as productive. And so that's when, even, with the situation Kaylee's sharing with our struggles with that, I was like, there's got to be a better way. There's no way around the fact that I got to work my full-time job because that's where I'm getting paid. And of course I have a obedience and loyalty to my employer. And so I have to, build the consulting on the side. There's no way to get around that. But could I get to bed by 11 o'clock as opposed to 2 a.m.? So that by the time Friday and the weekend rolls around, that I'm present and able to do things and enjoy the weekend with Kaylee.
So it sounds like maybe two of the keys are good communication and setting boundaries.
Yeah.
Coming to agreement on like what you just said. Okay, we're gonna commit to go to bed together every night by 11 or something like that. How important do you think those two are in the whole scheme of things?
Oh, absolutely. You nailed it right there. I think the crux of having better work-life balance is, especially when you're married, is coming to some kind of agreement of what does that look like with you and your spouse, and then creating boundaries around that. So for me, it was like, okay, let's get to bed by 11. And then if that's the goal, so that we can be present together, not just in bed, but even by the time the weekend hits, then, hey, we can do things because I got the energy to do it. Then we figure out what's the most productive things, what's the things that I need to do between that time after dinner and 11 o'clock that's most productive to grow the business. And what are the things I'm just going to have to say no to for now or forever? And then what are some other things? Maybe I can automate certain things, like responders on our opt-in forms. It's things like that. So yeah, absolutely. Coming to talking to each other about what does work-life balance look like, and what do we need to do to achieve that? Because too many times, because there's a lack of balance, is because we're just letting life happen. And as Pat was kind of saying in introduction, if you let it, the business will just overtake your life. And so if you're not intentional about setting those boundaries and those parameters and communicating with your spouse about what does a good life look like, not just for the future, but even for the present, then you're just gonna react to whatever comes around. And you're gonna react to other things besides your wife, your spouse, and your kids.
Yep.
Yeah, you guys know that the work we do is to help owners build a business that's transferable or sellable, and so it's going to be a strong business, and it's not going to be the owner's not going to be central to it. That's one of the key value drivers, and so if you're married and you have as a priority your marriage relationship, which of course involves investing time, doesn't it? Then it can force you to be intentional in building a business that is not central around you. And so indirectly, of course, or maybe directly, the business is going to be more valuable over time.
Yeah, absolutely.
If you have the marriage as the priority that it should be, and we would argue that that's the higher priority over the business. I think you guys would agree with that too.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think too. Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead, Kaylee, please.
I was going to say, from a child of an entrepreneur, that if you model that well to your family, the likelihood of one of your children or someone in your family wanting to take over the business is a lot higher, because it wasn't like in my childhood, the business was the mistress. And so, there was that struggle when the kids want their dad home to play with them and go to all their baseball games, their graduation. And when you don't have that, it's easy to become resentful of that.
Yeah.
Boy, that's a great point, because Walter, we run into not a few situations these days, right, where the kids don't want to have anything to do with the business.
Yeah, we see that.
So
because of what you're referring to.
Yeah. So understanding that, opportunities appear when they appear and you don't have perfect control over it. And what would you say to the couple who is, like, for instance, contemplating having children, but they're like, well, this is really an opportunity's arisen to really pursue starting our own business. And we don't want to complicate that by having kids. Or you have a situation where maybe you have some little kids and the one spouse comes home and says, guess what, I'm quitting my job and I'm pursuing a new business. I mean, there is something to be said for timing, but timing just doesn't, we really have very little control. We have much less control over it than we think we do.
Yeah. So, when it comes to opportunities, I think that's where being proactive about as a husband and wife to craft a vision of what does our best life look like. And if starting a business is a potential thing down the road that you want to do, then how do we start to prepare and even position our lives so we can take advantage of those opportunities? So it's really about being proactive, and then understanding that in the beginning phase of the business, there's going to be a lot of things, especially if you're going to move from a W-2 position like I did into a business. Those responsibilities and things are going to shift, right? It's going to be very different to start and run a business as it is a W-2. And so talking about those things and those expectations so you can prepare each other, and like if you're going to have kids, so you can prepare each other. How are we going to do this, right? We can create a plan of action as long as we understand what we're going to do, what we potentially is going to happen, kids starting a business or growing a business, expanding the business, right? As long as we talk about these things and prepare each other for those things, then when those busy periods of busy seasons in your life come up because of an opportunity comes into play, well, at least we talked about that potential, that possibility, and we're a little bit more prepared of how to handle it and know the expectations of what the time constraints are going to look like. Because work-life balance is not about the quantity of time you spend on one versus the other. Because I think that's the misnomer, is we think we're going to spend the same amount of time at home and business, but it's really about the quality of time. So even in the midst of working 60, 80 hours a week, because there's a season where you got to kind of go all in for a little bit, but how do we make sure, like even for me in that transition, how do I make sure that even in the time I have off, that I'm useful, right? I'm useful as a husband, that we can actually have fun, so that we have quality time with each other and it's not just all business. So I think it's just being intentional and communicating and setting vision for the future.
Yeah. One thing I've seen, because my wife and I have done some marriage counseling in our church, and it's kind of an interesting dynamic, but a lot of times, in our situations, usually it's been the man who is running the business and the woman is running the household. So we'll have a marriage counseling session. The woman will be complaining because her husband is never home. He's always working, which really frustrates and upsets him, because in his mind, that's an expression of love for her and care for her. He's out there trying to make a better living for them.
Yeah.
But oftentimes when you drill down, he's getting some things from the business that he's not getting from home. Like maybe, he at his business, he's the boss, he's respected, that type of thing. So there's some problems in the marriage dynamic itself, which I think leaves him happy to spend a little more time in the office than at home.
Mhm.
So a lot of things can be revealed, but it's really important to understand, what's going on at the heart level as far as your motives.
Absolutely.
Well, and I think too, we have, Robert and I, weekly meetings. So we meet up every Monday at 3:30 and we talk about where we're at with things. We talk about our schedule. This is going to be a really busy time now. We're launching our book. So we're going to put everything that we have into that. But then we also plan, okay, in the next 2 weeks, months, whatever it is, we're going to take some time off together. So I know what the expectations are. Okay, I can do this for a season. I can do it for a time. It's not going to be forever. And then we go over our calendar as well. Like, okay, what are some things now that we wrote the book that we need to say no to? Because there's no way we could do all the stuff we were doing while we were writing the book and still be keep our
Still love each other.
minds together and still love each other. I mean, and not
Right.
be stressed out. So we talk about a lot of those things.
Yeah, and I think to your point too, Walter, about the spouse putting all their time into the business because maybe they don't want to be at home because they feel more, like you said, respected. And I think that's going back to the communication point, is about husband and wife really talking about expectations and basically love language, like, right? Just talk about the 5 languages of love.
Yeah.
What communicates love to me? And I think, and your scenario is the husband feels he's showing love by providing for the family, but that's not what she wants,
Her
right?
love language is probably
yes,
time.
yes,
You know
money
what
in
I
a
mean?
bank is important, but that's not what she wants. She wants time.
Right.
Quality time, that shows love. Or she wants more affirmations, those kind of things. So that's where it goes back to the communication of what does love look like for me, and
Yeah.
and how do I give it to you? Because we tend to give love to the other person based on how we like to receive love, right?
Yeah.
So we just totally miss the mark.
Yeah.
But-
So, some listeners might think, well, an easy solution would be do what you guys are doing, work together. That isn't always, that's probably less than 50% of the time a good solution. I don't know, I'm guessing. What's your experience been in that regard?
Well, if they don't already have good communication and conflict resolution skills, then yes, it's going to just stress the marriage. But as long as you have good communication and conflict resolution skills, then you can do anything together. It doesn't really matter. And so we say, look, we don't want the fear of breaking up the relationship as a reason not to work together. It's like, if that's going to be an issue, then there's already something going on at home, right? Working together is just going to magnify the little things, the little cracks that are already going on at home.
Yeah.
You heal and repair that, or at least you work with that and work to work that, then you're going to be able to work together fine. And husband and wife teams, we found the ones that are working well together are the most powerful businesses that we've seen. I mean,
Yeah.
because you've got complementary skills, right? We know an accountant, big accounting firm here in Southern California. He's the face of the organization. He's the charismatic guy, but his wife makes that thing run, right? And a wife tends to be the operations manager at home. Well, she's also very good operations in the business. Just lends those skills right into the business. And he leaves her alone and she makes that thing run. If it wasn't for her, and he'll admit it, the business would not be nearly the size of the success that it is right now.
So it doesn't mean you're spending 24/7 together and you're doing everything together. You find out what you're good at, and then you guys go do that individually a lot of times.
Now, I've seen, I think on TV shows maybe, where it's like you got a husband and wife who work in the same office or whatever. So it's like, okay, we're going to have a date night and we're not allowed to talk about business. And then they go and they sit there in silence. So do you guys have any rules like that in your own lives, or you just let it flow?
Yeah. So, got to admit that we fall into that same trap too sometimes, but we do have a rule, right? No business at the dinner table. But sometimes, it's, you start talking about the same old things, even if it's not business. But good friends of ours, Rob and Joanna Teagan, also gave us these a book of cards. It's like 80 conversation starters, I think it is. And I think he's
You
got another one.
laugh, but I'm
I think he's got another
serious.
one called
Yeah.
101.
Uh-huh.
But they're fun too. I mean, so
Yeah.
we'll sit down, or sometimes if we're at a restaurant or at home, sometimes we'll bring those out, or she'll bring it,
Mhm.
and then we'll just talk through things. And you're like, yeah, I mean, they're simple questions, but it's like things you
Just
never
conversation
talked about,
starters,
and
yeah.
it just brings a better connection and flow. So if you're stuck, like we get to sometimes, find some of those cards, the 80 conversation starters or something to that effect. Find something, a tool that will help you just stimulate conversation away from the typical ones that we tend to kind of fall into, right?
I even thought about reading a book together,
Yeah.
and talking about that as well.
Yeah. Very interesting. So from your perspective, do you agree with the statement that there's definitely a correlation between building and exiting a business successfully and having a strong marriage?
What's the question again? That you can
That there's a correlation between the strength of your marriage and the ability to build and exit a business successfully.
Sure, there's absolutely a correlation, but sometimes it doesn't even always happen. That even though they have a strong marriage, doesn't necessarily mean they have a good exit, because
Yeah.
they're not preparing, they're not being proactive with the preparation of the exit. But definitely, if they have a strong marriage, they tend to exit better, because if they have a strong marriage, they're doing all the things we're talking about: the communication, conflict resolution, thinking about the future. All the couples, power couples that we've interviewed on our own podcast, to just either consulted or we just know that because their marriage is strong and they're doing the habits that we've kind of talked about, the regular meetings, the communication, really be able to resolve conflict, not just push things under the rug, but really resolve things. And so because of that, inevitably those discussion about what are we going to do with this business, right? There's going to be really good communication, because
Yep.
one's going to think more about the future than the other, like what's going to happen, how the kid's going to be involved, where's the money going to go? All those things are going to get discussed in a healthy marriage. So inevitably the business topics are going to come up for sure.
Yeah, and I think, one of the ways we look at it is when someone is looking to exit their business, we try to help them figure out if they're moving away from something or towards something. And those who are moving towards something are generally going to be happier post-exit.
Yeah.
And I think what you just described is a situation where a married couple with good communication skills is going to have a vision for their future, and they're going to be moving towards that as they
Yeah.
go through the exit process.
That's good. Yep, exactly. Totally agree.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. How about regrets? As we get older, our perspective changes, and that can lead to having regrets about the past or whatever. And this, I think this can be true for business owners, because it is being an owner of a business is a unique situation in itself. And then putting everything with marriage in on top of it, boy, are there any top regrets, if you will, of entrepreneurs that you two have observed as you've worked with business owners as they get older?
Yeah, great question. The top regrets are not spending enough time with the family. As they get older in their 50s and 60s, the top regrets for entrepreneurs is not spending enough time with family. And even people in ministry, I've heard the same exact thing. They're going so all into their career or their job or the ministry that everybody else takes a back seat. And in fact, when I was watching the Hall of Fame induction a couple of years ago, Jimmy Johnson, that coached Dallas Cowboys to back-to-back Super Bowls, he was inducted in the Hall of Fame. Twice in his 10-minute induction speech, he said his biggest regrets was not spending enough time with his sons. Here he is, a Hall of Fame football coach, and he rarely went to his son's football games. Right? I mean, I think of the irony of that, right?
Yeah.
Twice in his 10-minute speech, he said that. Now, he said his sons were in the audience. He said, it took years to repair that relationship, and thank God they're in front of me now, and we have a great relationship now, but that's the time I don't have back. Right? You can have a good relationship moving forward, repair the relationship, move forward, but you just missed it all looking back. And so, yeah, those are the top regrets. And so at the end of the day, as we get older, the career, the money is not the big issue anymore. It's like, as you start counting the days and the months till our mortality, as you get closer to that, you start reflecting on your life and go, hey, what really mattered? Right?
Yeah. And then you also see it with the wife too, they've been married 20 years, the kids go off to college, and then all of a sudden the wife's like, okay, the kids are gone. My husband hasn't been around, or my spouse, and we don't know each other anymore. They're either wanting to leave the marriage, or they're just like two ships in the night. They're complete strangers, and their husbands are like, what happened here? We had no idea.
Yeah.
What's interesting about that is one of our ongoing mantras is you can't start exit planning soon enough.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And when it comes to these things that are really the most important things in life, this should be part of your life the entire time, right? If you don't want to have any regret. So if you're going to have a successful exit, you're going to minimize regrets, hopefully have little to none. And so maybe the greatest risk of regret is in this area of not investing as much time with your spouse and your family through the years. And so let's say you exit financially successful even, and maybe successful in some other ways, but you have those regrets that, boy, oh my goodness, if I could do it all over again, my exit plan would include making sure that I had my spouse and my kids as the priority that they should have been throughout the entire time.
Yeah. I mean, we have a saying that if you prioritize your marriage and family, you can still make a lot of money.
Mm-hmm.
But if you prioritize money, your relationship will suffer. And so you can't have both. It's about where you prioritize where you focus your time and your attention, right?
Yeah, and we've observed this time and time again, that if the relationship, the marriage relationship suffers, eventually the business is going to suffer in some way, unless the owner just doesn't care about their marriage at all.
Right. Exactly. Exactly. That's the only caveat we've seen. Same thing. Right.
Right. Yeah.
So the takeaway here is you need to either really care about your marriage or not care about it at all.
Hot or cold there, Walter. Yeah. No in between.
That's right. That's right. If you want to build a successful business and exit successfully, you either got to do one of those two things. And of course, we're going to advocate for that's
hopefully
good.
it's the former, right?
All right. So listen, this conversation could go on for a long time,
Yeah.
but we're coming to the end. What in the last few minutes, what should you share with the listeners that we haven't talked about, that we haven't asked you about? What's going to be most impactful in the last few minutes here?
Well, besides the things we just talked about, on the relationship side and creating healthy boundaries, there is always still that tension about, well, if I focus on family, prioritize family, is my business going to suffer? Is it not going to grow the way I want it to grow, even the vision that I have? And so one, just, I guess, quick tip, for the business owner, one thing that's practical that will allow you to gain more time back for family, or your spouse, your family, but still allow your business to grow and grow beyond you, as you kind of mentioned, is don't do so much. So the average business owner wears so many hats, right? You hear that term a lot, so many hats. And that's the problem. That is the limitation of the growth of your business, is because you got your hands in everything. And so the less you do, the more things get done. In other words, figure out ways to automate, delegate, or eliminate some of the busy activities that are consuming your day, which is about 60-70% of your day, to allow you to focus majority of your time on the things that you're best suited for, that will actually be productive and grow the business. The visionary, the planning, maybe the research and development. Maybe it is being the chief rainmaker, depending on your kind of business. but where is your time best served in the business that'll actually allow it to grow? And then figure out ways to delegate the rest of the things to either automation or other people, or just stop doing certain things. Sometimes we just, especially in small business, they're just doing too much. They have maybe too many products and services that they're doing, but maybe just pare it down to just a core few. Do less and do it really well, instead of trying to dilute your effort and having, your hands in every pot and trying to reach the masses and all that kind of stuff. So, it's really, as the business owner, your time is consumed in the business. Well, do less. Do less of some of the activities that are consuming your day, and figure out what to do with the rest, so that you can focus your time on the productive things that will actually grow your business. And then you'll see that you can get time back. And that's how you start to scale, is because other people and other things are doing the work.
Mhm.
Yep.
Excellent. Excellent. Well, Walter's going to wrap us up here in a second, but before he does, I just want to again promote your book. I'm having a real nice time reading it. It's very, very interesting and valuable, and it hits home. Everything in it so far, I've read it. Yep. Right. Got it. Right. You're getting it. You're right on target. So Tandem, the Married Entrepreneur's Guide for Greater Work-Life Balance, Robert and Kaylee. Thank you again for taking the time to join us today. And
You're welcome. Thanks for having us
Thank
on.
you.
have
It's
you
been
back.
fun.
I hope to have you back again real soon.
Yeah. Yeah, we can share some of those kids' stories. The kids work in the business and those succession plans that don't work
Well,
out.
that would be good. Yeah.
Docs have been
Okay,
able to flip
great.
things around too. So, there's hope.
Excellent.
So plan ahead.
Yes.
Wait.
Okay. All right, good.
So this has been it's been a great discussion. Thank you both for joining us. How can a listener, what's the easiest way for a listener to obtain a copy of your book?
So it is on Amazon, since that's where everybody's buying books these days.
Okay.
And it's, again, Tandem, the Married Entrepreneur's Guide for Greater Work-Life Balance. Or you can go to our website, thetandembook.com, and then you can get a copy through that too.
Fantastic. And listeners, if you want help in planning your business continuity or your successful exit, feel free to get in touch with us today at either exitreadiness.com or email at exitreadiness.com. And if you use the code podcast when setting up a free exitreadiness.com account, you'll receive a 10% discount on any products purchased. Until next time on the Exit Readiness Podcast, this is Walter Dial and Pat Ennis signing off.